Blog Talk Radio.
I'm on the scene.
Intelligent, controversial, groundbreaking. The great liberators are coming. Hosts Amiri Brown and Kenya White take on all topics intrinsic to the Black experience. No topic is too cold or too hot. Now, here are the great liberators, Amiri Brown and Kenya White.
All right, how's everyone doing out there? This is your host, Amiri Brown, coming at you live, late, and in color. Just going to be doing a brief discussion on feminism and what its purpose and its function is and was, and is it something that is as detrimental as they say it is, or can it actually help to serve to be a mode of empowerment for the Black family? I'm bringing Kenya on right now. Kenya, are you there?
Hello.
Yeah. How you doing, Kenya?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. The call-in number is 646-564-9858. I know this is kind of an impromptu, thing that we put together just to see where it would go and what it was about. I was trying to get somebody I wanted to have on to talk about feminism briefly. Her name is Kim. I don't see her in the call queue. Right quick, can you just give us your functioning definition of feminism, and do you think it's something that could help to serve the Black family, or was it something that was needful, or what have you?
Well, my functioning definition of feminism is women looking out for their own civil rights and the protections of their freedoms and liberties, and to not be thwarted by the dominant society. I actually don't see it a whole lot different than the struggle that Black people as a whole went through from being under white domination. So,
right.
I think feminism is misunderstood. My definition of feminism does not involve hating men at all.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I know people who are feminists who are married. It's not about being a lesbian. It's just about wanting certain civil liberties and rights, and wanting a certain level of treatment, not special treatment. It's about balance and not domination.
Right.
That's what it is.
Okay. All right. If anyone, because I see we have a couple of callers in the queue, which I'm surprised by how late it is, but if anyone has a comment or would like to add their 2 cents to the discussion, you could press 1. I think I found Kim. Wanted to bring her on. I'm bringing her on right now.
Okay. Hello.
Yeah, Kim?
Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Hi, Kenya. How you doing?
Hello. How are you, Kim?
Sure. Oh, I'm doing awesome. I'm just excited to be a part of this.
Awesome.
Yeah. Because, I don't label myself as a Black feminist, because though I have nothing against feminism according to the textbook definition of feminism, which is simply, advocating for, equity in terms of rights, with men. I think feminism gets confused with female chauvinism.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be misunderstood and it's taken as a female chauvinist who bashes black men, you know, and there's a difference between black feminism and black female chauvinism. You know, female chauvinism actually disparages men, you know, and says that black women are superior to black men, but feminism simply advocates for equity in terms of civil rights, you know, for black women. And then also, you know,
okay,
is black feminism.
What's that noise in the background? Who was that? Somebody? There was some feedback coming.
Hello?
Okay. It stopped. It stopped. Whatever it was, it stopped.
Yeah. And also I want to go on to say that, you know, black feminism has been grossly, you know, misrepresented. I think a lot of black men especially have a problem with black feminism because they are referring to the quasi-black feminism that started in the 1970s that was really a front for the queer movement. But the authentic orthodox black feminism actually has its date in the times of slavery and the abolitionist movement. And, there's a lot of people who are against black feminism that would say that black feminism was an offshoot of white feminists, and black feminists were simply following the lead of white feminists, and that is far from the truth because actually black feminism predated white feminism and set the stage for white feminists. As a matter of fact, a black feminist conscience first began to develop during slavery times, because, there are historical records and the slave narratives by the Federal Writers Project, takes note of a numerous score of black female activists who resisted against slavery and the brutality of black people in general, and also the rape and sexual violence and the usurp of black female reproductive rights specifically. Like one of the very first black female activists were two African slave women who led slave revolts, successful slave revolts, Nanny of the Maroons, and then there was another black woman named Queen Mary. And the slave narrative papers of the Federal Writers Project goes into distinct detail about the many forms of resistance that black people participated in, from public protest to subterfuge to outright violent attacks in defense of their rights as women. And to be more specific, the white suffragette movement actually has its roots in the abolitionist movement that was led by black women. Right, and as a matter of fact, the white suffragists, they really didn't even begin to form their credo and their ideology until they heard Sojourner Truth's speech, Ain't I a Woman? It was at that time that white women began to think critically about who they were as a woman and what it meant to have their rights as a woman. And another thing that I want to note is that black feminists of the orthodox black feminist movement always made it a deliberate point to separate themselves from white feminists and to make it clear that their black platform and their issues were vastly different from those of white women. As a matter of fact, Sojourner Truth in her speech, Ain't I a Woman? Sojourner Truth said that her issues as a woman was nowhere near in comparison to the issues of white women because white women were fighting for the right to get in the workplace, whereas Sojourner Truth said that black women were already out there working in the field. And then when it came to the right for women to vote, Frances, I think her name was Frances Harper, she asserted that white women fight for the right to vote for the sake of education, but black women fight for the right to vote for the sake of protection. And then, black women really took a stance against white feminism when the white suffragettes tried to pit black women against black men because the white suffragettes were competing with black men for the right to vote. And the white suffragettes, they were highly racist and on that whole white supremacist agenda, and they even used the stereotype of the black man lusting after the white woman as fodder to give the public reason to vote for white women to get the vote first rather than black men. And white women are the ones who put black women in the position of having to choose to whether to continue to fight for the freedom of all black people or fight for women's rights. But black women didn't fall from the bait. It was at that time that black women took a stand against white feminism, and they actually allied with black nationalists, and black women chose to create their own voters' leagues and to continue to fight for the rights of both black men and women to vote, and the right for black men and women to be free, from violence.
But let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you this though. Let's point something out here, because the way we came to have this discussion on the Great Liberators platform was you and I were having a discussion offline about it. And that's something that you mentioned, which is true, but it goes back to the earlier point too, with because what you're referencing is first wave feminism, and how initially it was aligned with the abolitionist movement. As the abolitionist movement began to pick up steam, and feminism as an ideology and as a political movement of its own began to spread, and it began to influence Southern women. It was actually more of as the Southern women came in, they were the ones who actually brought in the white supremacist sensibilities and ideas into that first wave feminism. So that was just something that I wanted to add my 2 cents in, because I think what happens a lot of times is, because what we have to understand too is that these issues are extremely complex, and because what you actually have is a web of social pathologies and social caste and cultural values that intersect at various points, which creates this web of Americana, or what we could call Americana. So and because that's something that I mentioned too, how that it's a lot of times it's black women who talk about intersectionality and how their female identity will intersect with issues of race, with their racial identity. But we have to realize that is not the end-all and be-all of intersectionality. Intersectionality also intersects in different points in time with white men and white women and black men. It's not just something that's relegated to black women. And I think also, especially now within this modern era, the reason why a lot of black men take issue with feminism as an ideology and as a political movement is because, by and large, many of them are culturally aligned with white men when it comes to values, when it comes to how we see ourselves as men, and that's something, because that's what they want to do. They want to pretend like black women just started following behind white women, trying to have values that the white women had, when before that many of you bought into the ideas of what it meant to be a masculine man that the white men perpetrated and set up as the standard. The point in fact, when we go back, most of the slave rebellions and most of the organizing that went on in the black community, it went on in the church, and the church has always been a quasi institution of patriarchy. It always has. Right. It has always been. Right. It's just been within the modern era that you started having women in positions of power in the church. You see what I'm saying? So we have to deconstruct these things in a way that is salient, succinct, objective, and fair, and stop personalizing everything. You see what I'm saying? Right. Because it does not have to be a zero-sum game when it comes to feminism and black empowerment, and that is the point that Michelle Wallace made in her book Black Macho. It was the black nationalist movement that painted the independent black woman as detrimental to the black to the black family, and to the black nation. When my question is this: why would you have a problem with your woman being empowered when it's a political reality for you that you're being systematically disempowered? You would want your woman to have some measure of power because you have none. The white man is making sure you have any. You don't have any. So why would you have a problem with that? Why would you see that as a zero-sum game? The reason why you see that as a zero-sum game is because you want the ability to dominate your woman the way the white man dominates his. That's why.
Right.
That's why you have a problem with it.
Right.
When it should have been something that was more collaborative. Go ahead.
And I want to add that, the way that black men view black feminism is very problematic, because what they don't realize is that they are coming from a white supremacist paradigm in their view of black feminists, because white supremacists purposely set out to malign and distort the history of black feminists. Like the quasi-black feminist movement that was created in the 1971 and in 1973, that is not the original, authentic, orthodox black feminism. That form of feminism was actually a false feminism that was really used by the queer movement to push the rights of queer people and to align the queer agenda with the civil rights agenda. And so many black men, when they refer to black feminism, that's what they're referring to. They have no knowledge, and no historical context of the true black feminism and the true history and legacy of black female activists that dates back to, the slavery times. And, they really don't. And they don't even have a true accurate view of, the black feminism that was, critical to the black movement all throughout, the civil rights movement, with Rosa Parks, Angela Davis. And they really took issue because, black women really begin to become vocal about the extreme sexism and downright abuse that black women were facing at the hands of black nationals. Because there were black nationalists involved in the Black Panther Party, because the Black Panther Party, at first, they didn't even want to allow women to enter its ranks. And then when women did enter its ranks, they basically used black women in some instances as sex objects. Amiri Baraka, the poet, he made a statement that specifically said that black men and black women were not equal. I believe it was Stokely Carmichael. It was actually Eldridge Cleaver. He actually talked about raping black women. And then he minimized raping black women as a lesser crime than raping white women. So right. I don't understand why, black men are just as black men who would try to cover up that legacy of oppression of black women within the black civil rights movement. They're just as guilty as white people who try to cover up the legacy and the harm done to black people, under white supremacy. And it's really not to be tolerated. And another thing I want to say is that, black men have a hard time understanding that there's a difference between being submissive and being subservient. They don't want their women. Exactly. They think being submissive is the same thing as being subservient, and there's a vast difference, because you can still be submissive and be equal. Submissive simply, kind of takes compromise. It kind of takes a give and take. It kind of takes you doing your part.
Right, but it kind of takes, because that's something I talk about too, and I'll use another word too. We as men, we tend to conflate submission with subjection. Submission is something that is voluntary. Subjection is something that is done through force of will.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
I think that many of us conflate the two. Fundamentally speaking, men and women are equal. They are equal.
Exactly.
Just because two things are different and dissimilar does not mean they are not equal. does not mean they don't have equal value and equal meaning in equal weight. That's not what that's different does not equate to unequal.
Exactly, because you know when. Yeah, because, what I want to say about that equality, it's like, they always talk about with the yin and the yang, when there's a male energy and the female energy, and they perfectly combine in both its whole, there's balance. Well, if one was greater than the other and they came together, they would be imbalanced. If you were to put men on one side and women on the other side of the scale, it's supposed to come to balance. But if one is greater or lesser than the other, there will be imbalance no matter how you juxtapose the two together. So...
Right. No matter how you situated it, there would still be an imbalance there. There would still be an imbalance, and so that's why I said that many of their views and their values are aligned with white men. They are aligned with white males.
Exactly. And really what it is that. These black men, they might push that whole nationalist agenda and they're about black empowerment, but they're really not. They're about self-gratification. They want to put themselves in a position of supreme power so they can use everything and everybody else, including their women, as vehicles to gratify themselves. They don't want to.
Right now, being pro-black, what you really mean when you say you're pro-black is you're pro-black man. And this is how come the trope that is pushed is that under no circumstances can anybody critique black men. Under no circumstance can black men be critiqued, because the way that the pro-black scholars and the elders from years past, the way they conceptualize the entire problem of white supremacy, it was done in a way that was very androcentric, and it oriented and centered everything around the black man in an effort to uplift the black man. But as black men, we must understand that it is not all about us. It is not all about us as black men. You tell me how hard the system is on black men. Okay, I understand all of that. But that's how come we're the bigger, stronger, dominant being. We can take it being harder on us. I would rather it be harder on us than harder on our women. Where y'all find these dudes at? And see, this is how come someone, tell me what other race of men would allow another man or an individual to become a national figure based off the backs and the denigration of their women? What other group of men would do that? What other group of men would have a Tommy Sotomayor tear down their own women and not do anything about it?
Right. Exactly.
What other group of men? But when the entire cultural narrative and cultural ethos has been black women ain't shit but hoes and tricks, then you would allow something like that. The bottom line is this: is that for many black men have lost the will to fight their oppressors, so they would rather fight their woman, and that is the truth. Whether they would like to admit it or not, whether they want to own it or not, that is what it is. That is what it is. And at every instance, any time, any issue, or any black woman falls prey to white supremacy, it's something that she brought on herself.
Exactly.
But when you do some shit, you ain't got. When you do some shit that get you in the crosshairs of white supremacy, everybody must come to your defense because it's the black man. Like Francis Clark Wilson talking about that if the head of the nation is cut off, the nation can't thrive without black men. The nation can't thrive without black women either. So what are you talking about? A child that is had from a black man and white woman, and a child that is had from a black woman and a white man is just as much. They're equal. It's the same thing.
Right. Exactly.
So what are you talking about, Dr. Francis Clark Wilson? It's the exact same thing.
Exactly.
Each child is just as much black and white. So it has to be about both the black man and the black woman. And this is the reason why many black women tend to thrive and outcompete the black men, because we have all of these excuses in place for black men but we don't have any for black women. So black women are automatically in a point where they're unprotected, so they have to be more accountable. This is how come they're out competing you in school. This is how come they're out competing you in the marketplace. Right.
But you let black male misogynists tell it, and they'll say it's because of affirmative action. And that whole trope is just a flat out lie, because one thing that black misogynists do is they minimize both the pain of black women and the achievement of black women. They minimize our pain by making the assertion that black women don't suffer as much under white supremacy as they do, because they want to be the super victim. And they make it seem as if though black women have had an easy ride, in this country, when that's far from the truth, because we've endured every type of pain that they've had to endure, and then some. And then as far as our achievements are concerned, they say that black women are outperforming black men due to affirmative action, when they really don't have a well-rehearsed review or understanding or study of affirmative action. Because if you look at affirmative action has two clauses: to give opportunities to people who are African American, which is inclusive of men, and people who are women, but it's not people who are both African American and women. As a matter of fact, as far as the clause pertaining to the woman with affirmative action, who's benefited from that the most is white women, not black women. So black women have no more access to certain opportunities in education and the workplace as black men. Black men have under affirmative action, black men have just as much access to opportunities in both education and the workplace as black women, if not more. Because with certain educational institutions, for instance, for the sake of the diversity clause in the affirmative action, certain educational institutions prefer men to balance out the ratio of women to men, since there's generally a greater number of men with affirmative action in the diversity clause. Most educational institutions will give those slots to a black man before they will to a black woman. So that's another lie that black male misogynists invent and put out there as the reason why black women are out competing there, because we have greater advantages in this American society, and that's just a flat out lie. We have just as much access with affirmative action as black men have, and vice versa.
All right, let me say this, because I wanted to touch that. I wanted to touch on that with affirmative action, because like what you mentioned with how the group that benefits from affirmative action the most is white women. That's true, but that's because affirmative action was redirected under Ronald Reagan. Before Ronald Reagan did that, before he redirected affirmative action to wholly benefit white women, the group that did benefit from affirmative action the most was black women. They're the group that benefited the most, but they're the group that needed the most, because many black women, I think at that time, before affirmative action, like 60% of black women worked as domestic servants in the households of white men and white women.
Right.
They would work as nannies, caretakers, maids, housekeepers, things of that nature. So many of them did that. Now, when affirmative action took place, that number dropped all the way down to 2%, where it is today. So it helped black women immensely, but we have to understand, by helping black women, it also helped the black family, because black women have always historically worked in this country. Many of these men, when they talk about the issue of affirmative action and feminism, they want to make it seem like they were sitting at, like they woman was sitting at home doing the June Cleaver thing. No, the hell she wasn't. She was out there working, right along with your black ass. So why you sitting here trying to pretend like you had it like that? See, they say those things to soothe and satiate their ego, because they don't want to face the reality and the full scope of the reality. And what you said was profound. They seek to minimize the pain of black women and the achievement of black women, all in deference to their ego. It's all about their ego. We can never do an honest assessment. There can never be an honest conversation that takes place about what has transpired and how black women have been have been victims. Because oftentimes when those black women would work in the homes of white men, those sisters would be sexually harassed, they would be assaulted, they would be subject to all manner of mistreatment. But so long as we could sit and feel like the man while she out there getting that check and then got to come home and submit and clean up the house and do all that. You see, because the bottom line is this, is that for many black women, they were forced to fulfill both gender roles or partake in both gender roles because many black men were hamstrung by white men. But that is not her fault. As a man, and this is why I ask brothers all the time, because you know what we do? We want to pretend as if we up the level of masculinity, we're going to up the level of manhood. That is not true. Nothing could be further from the truth. Masculinity in and of itself has nothing to do with manhood. You can be a masculine male and not be a man. Mm-hmm. Yes, I said that. You can be a masculine male and not be a man. You can be a masculine homosexual. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Masculinity in and of itself is a strength dynamic. It is rooted in strength, in the physical brawn, and in the way you think and wield that physical strength. But manhood is something deeper. Manhood is something greater. It's an internal drive. It is a power dynamic. Manhood is the ability of a male to execute his will and his purpose. So as men, it is not laid at the feet of any woman, and especially black women, for you to execute your will. You have to figure that out as the man. So I don't care, because you know the way I look at it, and what has allowed me to do the things I've done in my life, despite everything that I face, because the contrary to what many of them think, I didn't grow up in no home with no silver spoon. So what has allowed me to do what I needed to do for my family is the way I think, and the way I think is this: I am not trapped in a world with white supremacy. White supremacy is trapped in a world with me. That is the way I mitigate my existence. So I don't care what you put in. Well, I don't care what you put in place. If your plan is for me to go into a life of crime and sell drugs because you've made resources scarce, I'll pick shit with the chickens before I fall into your trap. Right. Why would I do that? These men are weak, and nobody wants to talk about it. Everybody wants to pussyfoot around it and then act like they finna build something. You're not finna build a goddamn thing. And then talking about I'm mad at black men. You damn right I'm mad. Why wouldn't I be mad? You're sitting here, all these people getting killed. You're going on year 500 of being dominated, and all you can fucking talk about is fucking polygamy. Talking about nation building. But you have no counterintelligence apparatus. But nation building? You have no central bank. But you're telling me about nation building? The pledge of allegiance of the black nation is I pledge allegiance to the black man's genitalia. Miss me with that bullshit. But nobody can say anything about it.
Exactly.
And call it out what it is.
And another thing that I want to highlight is how, one common excuse of both black men and black women, when they fail to, really achieve in this present day, is they attribute everything back to slavery. But what blows that out of the water is looking at the status of black people post-slavery. I mean, right, post-slavery up until perhaps maybe, the 1950s, 1960s, black people were achieving astronomical feats. Astronomical feats. We had a higher number of black entrepreneurs. We had our own Black Wall Street. Black people were incorporating their own towns. And especially as far as, the pedigree of black men in the past, it's a common misnomer that, slavery was the cause of the breakdown in the black family today, because right from pre-emancipation slavery up until the 1960s, of all black American families, 2/3 were two-parent homes. As a matter of fact, some of the novelists, like such as Ralph Ellison and Richard Wright, when they talk about the dynamics of black life in the urban setting, they highlight how it was very rare to have a fatherless black home. So, having all of these deadbeat black, and another thing I want to highlight is that, there were families that were broken up, from slaves being sold, but what happened is right after slavery, black men made great effort and reunited with their family that was sold off. Right. And I don't know if, white supremacy intentionally, hides that fact about the resiliency and the strength, of the black family, but it was not always the case of baby mamas and baby daddies. That's something recent. That was not even the case in slavery. In slavery,
but here's what they do, though. But here's what they do. See, because they'll readily admit that, because I've even heard Umar Johnson say that. But one thing we do have to understand too is that while slavery may have not destroyed the black family, it did cause a certain level of damage. We have to be honest about that. But it did. Nonetheless, what you said is true. At one point in time, black people did have the highest marriage rates. They had 2-parent homes and all of that. But we have to understand the way values in America are constructed. The values in the South, which are based and rooted in Christian principles, precisely because of the Bible Belt South, are different from the cultural values in the North and in the northern cities. So as black families began to migrate out of the South and into the bright lights in big cities, and in the city and in the northern cities, the marriage rates were already naturally lower. Though that dynamic switched as they moved away from the Bible Belt South, which even to this day has the highest marriage rates, and went into the northern cities, they began to take on the values of those areas. Now, with that being said, the conditions of the inner city that they were stuck in the ghettos further demoralized and degraded that. Then when you look at the Vietnam War, which took out entire generations of black males who were coming out of school, who were able-bodied, level-headed, and sent them off to die. I think at the height of the Vietnam conflict, 13% of all combat troops were black men, while we as a people comprised of 13% of the overall population. So that was a staggering number in and of itself. Then when many of those brothers came back from Vietnam, they would come back strung out on heroin, and they would come back with PTSD, and they came back to a public relations debacle because the war was highly unpopular. So then when you couple that with the crack cocaine epidemic and the war on drugs, you have the perfect storm that takes the fathers and the males and the men out of the home. But what they want to do is blame welfare, feminism, and all these other tropes, because they know if they blame that, they can redirect the accountability to the black woman, as opposed to putting the blame and the accountability where it belongs, which is your oppressor. So you're afraid to do that. You're afraid to face the oppressor, so you want to face your woman.
And, one thing that is dawning on me, that a lot of these black men, they don't want to take accountability because, truth be told, they like it the way things are today. In some ways, they like how the president could, because they have greater access to what they want. They have greater access to women's bodies with the way things being the way they are today. They don't want a revision in the moral code of of how black men and women, interact. They don't want a moral revision and, and practicing sexual responsibility. They really don't want for black love and healthy relationships between black men and black women to be restored. Because if it goes back to that, then they're going to, because back in the day, Steve Harvey, made a point about this. Black men had to come correct before they could lay up with the woman. You know, they just could not walk into, you know, a household and walk past the father and the mother and take a girl out and go have sex with her and then just bring her back and drop off. He had to come with a sense of integrity. He had to come with a certain work ethic. He had to come and show that he had the financial means or the potential to get the financial means to properly care, you know, for a black woman. You know, and so a lot of men don't want to have to meet those requirements and fulfill those requirements. You know, they don't want to have to take on the obligation of marriage, you know, in order to be with a woman. A lot of them, you know, for all their talk, they really don't want things to be fixed. They want it to stay just the way it is. The only thing that they want is to have as much power as the white man has to do more damage and to have even greater control. You know, but as far as, you know, fixing and repairing, you know, black relationships, you know, it seems to me that they really don't care. They don't want it to be fixed because then they will have to bring more to the table. You know, the least they have to do, the better it is for them. I mean, it's more convenient for them. You know, they don't have to, you know, meet any duty or take on any responsibilities or obligations in order to lay up with the woman. So what's their incentive, you know, to want to fix it?
Exactly. You know what? You hit the nail right on the head, and that's why I be blasting these brothers, because like I tell you all the time, they're full of shit. What they really value is cheap sex, because that's the way they've been conditioned. That many of them are over-sexualized and hypersexualized. Many of them have become eroticized to their semen, so their semen has no human meaning to them. So they'll sit there and say things like, "But see, y'all women emotional. Us men, we logical." But while you sitting there talking about how logical you is, you're sitting there and have your face all in some woman ass and in her vagina that you don't know, don't love, and don't want to be with. And then when she get pregnant, now you want to sit here and whine and then think I'm a cake.
Exactly.
No, brother, don't do the grind if you can't pay the fine. Period. Point blank. So sat there and did all that like a man. Pay your shit. Pay your goddamn child.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. They actually think that they have the right to shortchange a child that they sat there and made and want to complain and whine, and everybody's supposed to care because I ain't got no money and I'm broke and I'm making $8 an hour. And it's not a moral issue, it's a financial issue. Well, guess what? It should have been a financial issue before you hopped your ass in that bed. Because as a man in the home who's the head of the household doing everything, I can't fail. I have to bring it home. So what's your excuse? You see what I'm saying? What's missing in these goddamn communities is consistent black male accountability. You have too many black men who might be doing what they're supposed to do, but they're willing to give a pass to a dusty ass nigga who's not doing what he's supposed to do. You want to sit up there and laugh like a man and be all up on and bounce up on this woman's belly like a man. God damn it, you take care of your child. You knew what you was doing, and don't come telling me nothing about no abortion. Because you were willing participant in the activity, knowing the risk. So once again, pay your shit. I like children. I love children. I love these black children, little black boys and girls. You think I'm gonna let them go without for your little dusty, crusty black ass? Them children didn't ask to be here, nigga. This is the problem. We've become so demoralized as a people.
Exactly.
I don't want to hear it. Pay your little $50 a goddamn week. Then they're sitting there talking about now you got to pay for these $40,000 a month. Nigga, you're not even making $40,000 a year. Sit your ass down somewhere. You know what I'm saying? But everybody's supposed to play and coddle these sorry ass men. Not me. Because I haven't had the luxury of making excuses in my life. What the hell I look like making excuses for you?
Exactly.
Period, point blank, and I don't care if they mad. But that was what I have to do it, y'all. But I appreciate we had a couple of people listening, so I appreciate the listeners. Tim, it was good.
Awesome.
You know, we're gonna have another show Sunday or something like that. So Great Liberators out.
Yeah. Bye guys.
Thank you for listening to The Great Liberators, hosts Amiri Brown and Kenya White. Until next time.
Hi, it's Jamie, Progressive's Employee of the Month, 2 months in a row. Leave a message at the... Hi, Jamie. It's me, Jamie. I just had a new idea for our song about the Name Your Price tool. So when it's like, tell us what you want to pay, hey, 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 and the trombone goes, blah, 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 and you say, we'll help you find coverage options to fit your budget. Then we just all do finger snaps while a choir goes, savings coming at ya, savings coming at ya. Yes? No? Maybe? Anyway, see your practice tonight. I got new lyrics for the rap break.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.